Vegas odds makers have decided the 49ers are the favorites to win the NFC this year. I mean, no disrespect to the Niners. They came close last year, but wow, like we don't even know who their quarterback is. Like, what a mark of respect from the country that it really doesn't matter who the Niners quarterback is. People feel confident voting for them to win the NFC this year. What do you think that's based on, Jack? I mean, the Eagles are pretty good too.
The Eagles are very good. I think it's based on what the 49ers showed last year. They showed that they could get all the way to the NFC Championship game using 3 different quarterbacks, including one that was the last pick in the draft, another guy who was kind of a mediocre quarterback in terms of the NFL landscape, and Jimmy Garoppolo. They still won 13 games in the regular season, get to the NFC Championship game, and maybe win that game. Who knows how that game plays out if Brock Purdy stays healthy. I think the 49ers have a chance in that game, but I think that's what it is. The 49ers have last year they had what people said was the best roster in the league if you took the quarterback out of the equation. And I think they're still in that same position. So in terms of the NFC getting to the Super Bowl, I think the 49ers are right there with the Eagles, if not a little bit better. I can make the argument that the 49ers improved this offseason and the Eagles did not.
It seems like that's what odds makers are saying, right? Like that's what they're saying. The Niners took some steps forward. The Eagles didn't. Wow. I mean, Hargrave is a nice addition for the 49ers. I mean, Eagles got Jalen Carter, although there's some questions about Jalen Carter.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the thing is the Eagles are doing what the 49ers did in 2020. Let's see if it pays out for them. They're taking a guy who in the top
had like a million red flags.
Yeah. And they just lost a guy who has been very productive to the 49ers, and they're replacing him with a guy, like you said, million red flags, wasn't overly productive in college either. Nope. He only had 3 sacks, 2 seasons. One 3 each year. So you look at his productivity. Javon Kinlaw was a more productive college player.
That's correct.
Than Jalen Carter. So it's an interesting.
The one thing you can say is at least he doesn't have a medical red flag, which is a total deal breaker in the top 10.
Sure.
I mean, him being overweight isn't necessarily a medical red flag, but I saw you hesitated on that one. But yeah, it's like, is he a pass rusher? I don't know. Is Jordan Davis a pass rusher? I don't know. But I feel like their run defense should be like their run defense sucked last year. Now I don't know about their linebackers now, but I feel like they should be just tougher to run on first and second down. Theoretically, I don't know what Jordan Davis is in practice and Jalen Carter in real life.
I think there's, I don't know either, but I would not put it past the Eagles to be right there. I think the Niners and the Eagles are the 2 best teams in NFC. I just think that the 49ers improved themselves a little bit on defense. I do think that Hargrave is a big addition. Then I think Isaiah Oliver in the slot is a better cover corner in that position than Jimmy Ward.
Jimmy?
Yeah, you take all the things that position does, and maybe it's a little bit of a wash, but I think from a coverage standpoint, he's an upgrade. And then in the secondary, the rest of the secondary is the same, and pretty much the rest of the defense is the same. You look at
also Wilkes might be an upgrade over D'Amico. Like if we're being honest here,
he might be. And
no disrespect to D'Amico, because D'Amico kept things very simple, but I think Wilkes might be a little bit more. Might bring some better blitzes that we didn't see from D'Amico. I want to say
he might be, and I think you saw some of Wilkes, his fingerprints on who the 49ers took in this draft with what you just said, that ability to blitz when you look at those defensive players they took.
I feel like with Saleh and D'Amico, those are linebacker guys. Like Saleh was a linebacker coach. D'Amico was a linebacker and a linebacker coach. Mm-hmm. And now the Niners have the best linebackers in the league, but I think the way the league is trending, I think DBs are more important than linebackers. And linebackers essentially are big DBs these days. Like they're like safeties, essentially. So it's interesting to see the Niners finally get a defensive coordinator who has that mentality. And all of a sudden you see them like, oh, you guys made an aggressive move for a safety. Like that's new. You guys haven't done stuff like that in a long time. And so they have a potential to have a really good safety tandem. And then that Darrell Luter Jr. looks like Emmanuel Mosley with like a little bit more size. Like he looks really good.
Yeah. And if, I don't expect him to necessarily break into the starting lineup this year, but that gives
good depth.
Exactly. And I think when we get into the draft, I think that's the thing. When you start to look at who the 49ers added, they added some really good depth to their roster. That's going to pay off. I think the hope is that they pay off down the road.
I love the D Winters pick. I mean, if a 6th round pick can have a big impact in the NFL this year, I think it's him. He And it makes sense. It's like if you're going to be taking outside linebackers for this scheme and you could get Dre Greenlaw in round 5, why would you ever draft one before round 5? You can get studs that fit your scheme. And they did it again. They got a guy who's 5'11", 230, runs a 4.4. Like, I bet. And he has a lot of experience. Like, he's not just a project who didn't play well in college. He's a guy who was a team captain on a team that was in the national championship. Like, yeah, he's going to work out on this team, I think, probably. Most likely. Round 6, good draft.
Right. And then you add in who's the linchpin in that linebacker group? Fred Warner. And he was taken in round 3. So it's not even like they ever used a top pick on any of their top level linebackers.
What's interesting is like putting the Niners here. I kind of get it because there's usually a Super Bowl hangover for the team that loses, right?
Yeah,
there usually is.
Usually. That's what they
usually.
Say.
I mean, often sometimes you can be disappointing that next year, and the Eagles were just so good last year. I mean, they were essentially like they lost 2 games with Jalen Hurts. Maybe he finally comes back to earth a little bit. Maybe teams finally figure out what they're trying to do because it seems like they had the whole league caught off guard. The team I'm looking at that could be the Eagles of last year that goes from sort of 500 to really good is Seattle. It's a really young team, and it's Geno. But damn, that team, like the last 2 drafts they've had, I've just really admire. I think they're really good. So good coach. I'm looking at Seattle. Like, what kind of a jump can they make? Their run defense is still really soft.
No, but that's a good call because the jump that the Eagles made was from the bottom to they were the
did it in 2 years.
7th seed. They were the 7th seed to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
The Seahawks were the 7th seed. Now what can they do? I agree with you. I think that Seattle had a hell of a draft. I don't know about the receiver. I think he really fits what they do, though. I think that's the piece as the number 3 guy,
right?
With everybody else that they have in there, that should help them out. They've done a really good job up in Seattle. You look at that entire draft. I don't have it in front of me right now, but you kind of go through their names and who they were taking. It's like, man, that guy's a good player. That guy's a good player.
So they got Charbonnet. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then that's a big one too because they already have Kenneth,
Walker.
The guy. Walker, who was really good last year as a rookie. Now you add Charbonnet to it. We talk about how the 49ers want to play this bully ball kind of style. Seattle also has a couple of guys that were rookie offensive linemen that are going to be in year 2. They should be a little bit better. So, they were tough against the 49ers in the playoff game, right?
They got Bobby Wagner back. They're getting Jamal Adams back. I mean, we've seen Pete Carroll do this with young teams before.
Yeah, they are tough. It's the Niners and the Seahawks in the NFC West. I just think the 49ers are a little bit better team, but Seattle's right there too.
What's scary about Seattle is that they have I want to say they have a better offensive line than the Niners. And until Brock Purdy comes back, they might have a better quarterback than them too. So what they had last year was a putrid defense, but it's young. There's been a whole lot of new additions. And if they can plug up the run defense a little bit, I mean, we've seen what Pete Carroll can do. So that might be a team that wins 11, 12 games. I'm curious about them. I don't know. I like Dallas. I still don't take them seriously. Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott. You know what I mean? Like, it's great defense, though. Great defense, for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you on this because I'm with you in terms of the Seahawks and Pete Carroll. They always find a way to be competitive. No matter what, at least, and they make the playoffs in their first year without Russell Wilson. They turned the thing right around. They used Wilson to really rebuild this team in a lot of ways. And they're scary. They're not one to be overlooked.
Like their defense ranked like 30th last year. What if it ranks 10th this year or 15th? All of a sudden, that's a team that, I don't know.
I mean, if they're 10th, they're right there with the 49ers because that's right where the 49ers are most of the time.
Good point. And then there's Detroit, which I felt like they fumbled their opportunity to make ground. Like we didn't even talk about the fact that Philly added DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. I think that's big for them because I didn't think Miles Sanders was that dangerous. I don't know who's scared of Miles Sanders. Now you got 2 guys who are kind of dangerous. And Detroit, what they did was get rid of DeAndre Swift and spend a first-round pick replacing him. Like, I like Jahmyr Gibbs, but damn, I don't think that's going to move the needle, guys.
Yeah, I like the Lions. I think the Lions are going to have a good shot because the NFC North is so bad. I think it's going to be it's going to be them and Minnesota. So that's the only thing is because of who they're playing against is so weak. You have an opening for the Lions and the Browns. I think here to make some ground up now that you don't have Aaron Rodgers.
I'm actually interested. Right? I'm intrigued in that division. Like, what is Green Bay going to look like? What is Jordan Love? Who is Jordan Love? All of a sudden they drafted 2 tight ends. Both of them are intriguing. They, I mean, I'm curious to see what that team's got. Jordan Love.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. It's funny, right? They get to the end of the road with Rodgers. They had a wide receiver last year. They had a couple this year. Rodgers, but he's finally time to leave, and they start throwing guys in there. So
yeah, now Jordan Love gets weapons. It's funny. Also, the Bears. They're trying to make it work with Justin Fields. They saw what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts in year 3, and they're doing the best. They brought in a bunch of offensive players. Do you think they can make it work? I don't know.
I think that we can see the Bears. It's if their defense plays better, they will be a much better team. They have a good quarterback. He's kind of an interesting guy because he runs around so much, but he makes plays. He's the best player on their offense, but they don't have a defense that's very good. And if they can improve on that side of the ball, then they'll improve. That's kind of what carries the 49ers, right? When their offense is struggling at times, the defense carries them, and so on and so forth.
Then let's go through the conference. Like Cardinals, they're a year away from being a year away. The Rams, God knows what they're doing with their team. I don't even know. I think they have an identity crisis, reconstruction, deconstruction. Who cares about them? They suck.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ramelia Sports Report.
The Amelia's in here. Yeah, no, that the Ramley.
Tampa sucks.
Tampa, the NFC South sucks, right? Tampa.
Yeah, Atlanta sucks. Well, I can't say that because they beat the Niners last year, but like they don't seem like a. I mean, okay, let's stick with Atlanta for a second. Desmond Ridder. All you had to say, right? Is he? Where are they going with Desmond Ridder? Is that serious?
Yeah. Well, exactly. I don't.
Brock Purdy got these teams thinking that any old backup can win. It's crazy.
Yeah, but they don't have Kyle Shanahan calling the shots either. Come on.
No, they got big Arthur Smith.
No. Yes. Yeah, no, but it's interesting because Atlanta does have an offense that's similar to the Niners. It's predicated on the run game, all those kind of things. But I'm just not sold on the Falcons. I'm not sold on anybody in that NFC South. I think they're all pretty much in the same ball. That's where that 8, 9, 9, 8 team's going to come from the playoffs again this year.
There's one more team that's interesting. Washington. They're trying to be the 49ers so bad. They brought in Martin Mayhew. They're committed to the defensive line. They added as many people as they could to the defensive line. Their quarterback is Jacoby Brissett. Nothing against him, but like that's the best you could do. So I don't think we really got to talk about them.
Yeah, no, that
what about the Giants?
Well, hey, I mean, yeah, we're gonna. I'll wait. I'll save the my Washington take for when we get to the topic about the what the 49ers and all their salary cap space that they have.
Oh, okay.
But okay. The Giants. The Giants did okay last year, but their quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And
now he just got paid. God.
Yeah. And so it's really the Eagles. The Cowboys are going to be tough, but the Cowboys are going to fold in the postseason because that's who they are. Yeah, the NFC is not as intriguing as the AFC. I'll tell you that.
This is an interesting point. How will it benefit us since the Eagles lost OC and DC? I don't know. I guess we'll see. They lost Steichen, but they have a guy on offense. There was a quarterback coach that they like, I believe. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because they're made in their head coach's style. They're that's who put this whole thing together, and it's his style of offense, it's his style of defense. So he's just needs to find the right guys. That's one of the things like with Shanahan when people talk about like Shanahan, like the benefit of him being able to run the offense is that it doesn't matter it's always going to, if the offensive coordinator leaves, like what they had happen this last year, you still got the same guy calling the shots. And defense, he has a good feel for what he wants over there, and he's able to find him. I think you'll see the same thing with the Eagles. I think they're going to step right up.
Yeah, I think their offense will be the same. I think their defense will be different. I think it's a good thing because
it could be.
Gannon, he got exposed, and I think the Niners were basically saying that they were going to do that they saw the same thing. Like they kept talking so tough before the game, or after the game. Like, what were you talking about? What did you see on film that you? I think Kyle probably pointed it out to him. Like, look, guys, like when we go in motion, they don't like we can do this and this. Andy Reid saw it too. Burned him twice. Embarrassing. Imagine him hiring him as your head coach after that happened. I would just ghost him. Sorry, man, not gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So he's gone.
They took it to him. The Kansas City took it to him. They were able to keep their quarterback in the game and get the run game going. And between Mahomes' ability to make a few plays and the running game, just running through them, they were able to come back and do what they needed to do. So I'm right there with them.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that'll help the Eagles, but there are reasons to think that the Eagles could take a step back this year and the Niners could leapfrog them. But the way I look at it is, if you line up all the players the Niners lost and the Niners gained, and the same with the Eagles, you can make the argument that they both kind of came out even. The team that made a jump this offseason is Seattle. And I don't know how much of a jump they made. Maybe they're in the mix with the Niners in Philadelphia. Maybe they're not quite there. Maybe they're past them, and that's why they play the games. But if we're talking about the team that made the jump, I think it's Seattle.
Yeah, I know. I do think that Seattle added the most to their roster. They did a good job.
Lost the least.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like after round one, when I was talking with Larry after round one, and I said I really like what Seattle did more than the Eagles, because they added to the roster. They weren't filling a hole for somebody that left. They just added to it. So that's why I like what Seattle did more than Philly. And you start to look at like the additions and subtractions. I think, with the 49ers, you don't see as many additions, because some of the guys that are going to be stepping in are guys that were already on the roster. So you don't see them necessarily coming from other places.
Guys from last year's draft.
Yeah, the guys from last year's draft, or it's a guy like Eric Armstead.
Yeah.
Or
Colton Kivitz.
Exactly. And then the reason I say Armstead is because he was injured for so much of the season.
Right. True. And potentially Kinlaw. Let's not write off Kinlaw yet, to be fair.
Yeah, he'll be a good depth piece somewhere along. That's what he's going to be.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's not going to play over Hargrave at this point. That's a good one.
Yes.
That being said, I mean, the Niners want to rotate players anyway, so if he could do that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Good question. Shanks, can Drake Jackson break out? He went through a special program in the offseason in order to work on strength and conditioning. He looks huge Instapicks. That would be good, because I don't think he really had an NFL body last year. I don't know what he was going for. Felt like he was too big. I don't know. So hopefully, that would be big.
Yeah, I'm with on this one. I've put this out there a few times. I think Drake Jackson is the guy that's going to step up this year. There's been so much discussion around the 49ers during the draft process that they need to get a defensive end, and I kept just kind of saying to myself, no, they don't. I kind of put that out there a couple times. They don't need to go after a defensive end here on day one or day two when they first had the first pick.
Because that's why they drafted Drake Jackson last year. They knew the situation was coming.
Yeah, and they talked about it. The main thing with Jackson is he just needs to get stronger. He wasn't able to maintain throughout the entire season. I think he's going to have a big season with the rest of the defensive line, with Bosa and Armstead and Hargrave. That's going to help him succeed, because he's a guy who doesn't just run around the edge. He's not that quick guy like a D Ford necessarily. Mm-hmm. You see the sacks that he had last year, it's a lot of cleanup kind of stuff. So you get that pressure from those other guys and you let him clean it up. And I think that's where he's going to be successful.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I can see that. Anoop says Niners are going to the Super Bowl this year. Book it, guaranteed. But they will lose to the Chiefs because Andy Reid will outcoach Kyle. Frowny face. Frowny face. Andy Reid's good. What are you going to do?